In a season defined by volatility across the NFL, no storyline has advanced with more surprising velocity than the sudden ascendance of the Chicago Bears, who now enter December as the NFC's #1 seed after an improbable 5-0 run through November that has revitalized a franchise long associated with near misses, offensive dysfunction, and enduring frustration. Yet this year's Bears, now 9-3 and riding their longest winning streak in more than a decade, have delivered a genuine recalibration of expectations, both internally inside Hollis Hall and among a fan base that has spent years watching the team drift between rebuilds, resets, and reinventions, none of which took hold the way this transformation suddenly has. The narrative pivot reached a new crescendo after the Los Angeles Rams, a team widely considered the conference's most complete threat, fell 31-28 to Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers, a result that stunned oddsmakers and pundits alike and simultaneously pushed Chicago to the top of the conference thanks to a head-to-head tiebreaker advantage in conference record, a detail that now looms large as December unfolds. Context is crucial. Only 2 months ago, the Bears were considered a team still learning to walk under first-year head coach Ben Johnson, an offensive architect hired for his creativity, calm, and ability to modernize a unit that had spent much of the previous decade ranked among the league's worst. Yet Johnson's impact has been immediate and transformative, reshaping the identity of the offense around a dominant offensive line, a two-headed running game, and a rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams who, despite intermittent inconsistency typical of first-year passers, has already demonstrated the poise, improvisational ability, and late-game resilience that made him the most discussed prospect since Andrew Luck. Williams' clutch play, particularly in the fourth quarter, has complemented a defense that, even while dealing with injuries to key figures such as Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards, has steadily tightened its structure and rediscovered its turnover-creating identity as players like Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, and the emerging pass rush unit have returned to form. The Bears' metamorphosis has been impossible to ignore, particularly in contrast with the instability that characterized the final stretch of the previous coaching regime, whose lone 3-game winning streak was immediately followed by a 10-game collapse that resulted in a wholesale overhaul of the roster and staff. That already feels like distant history as Chicago, now winners of 5 in a row, prepares for a December gauntlet loaded with national television windows, rivalry games, and playoff ramifications that will reverberate across the conference. Chicago's schedule features 2 matchups against the Green Bay Packers in a 3-week span, a rarity with massive implications, not only for the NFC North but the broader NFC seeding picture, because a Bears sweep would push Chicago to the brink of clinching the division while positioning them as the most credible threat to claim the NFC's top seed for the first time since the 2006 season. Between those rivalry games sits a home showdown against a resilient Cleveland Browns team and back-to-back tests against the San Francisco 49ers and Detroit Lions, both of whom remain in the playoff hunt. The league, recognizing the ratings potential, has already flexed Chicago into later broadcast windows and is expected to continue doing so, as Bears 49ers is slotted for Sunday Night Football in Week 17, and Bears Lions in Week 18 has the look of a win and in, or even win for the division primetime showcase. That the Bears have become must-see television stands as a validation of years of NFL scheduling gambles. Chicago was repeatedly placed in national windows despite poor records because of the city's massive market footprint and loyal fan base, yet the team consistently delivered stilted offense and dispiriting losses. This season, the calculus has flipped, and the NFL now finds itself with a surging contender anchoring high-stakes matchups as the playoff picture crystallizes. Analysts are now tasked with reconsidering Chicago's ceiling, shifting from early season caution to genuine curiosity about how far this team might climb. While no Bears coach or player has uttered the words Super Bowl expectations, the quiet acknowledgement that such an outcome is no longer fantasy marks a stunning departure from recent years, when playoff berths felt more like optional bonuses than attainable objectives. Chicago's formula is built on tangible, sustainable components. A physically imposing offensive line that opens rushing lanes with consistency, a running back duo that can cycle between power and finesse depending on game flow, a quarterback whose poise grows in proportion to the stakes, coordinators who have leaned into adaptability rather than rigid scheme adherence, and a defense that remains among the league's best in creating momentum-changing plays. The team's health trajectory adds another dimension, as Edmonds and Edwards could return by late December, potentially strengthening an already ascending unit at the exact moment when contenders look to peak. More broadly, the NFC landscape's unprecedented parity has created an environment ripe for disruption. Philadelphia's recent struggles have thrown the conference's hierarchy into flux. The Rams remain dangerous but inconsistent. The Packers are improving but volatile. And the 49ers, despite flashes of dominance, have endured injury cycles that complicate their pursuit of rhythm. Against that backdrop, Chicago has emerged not as an accidental beneficiary of chaos, but as a team whose improvements have aligned with the league's structural uncertainty, giving it a legitimate chance to claim advantages once reserved for entrenched powers. Even cautious observers admit the Bears have already exceeded the symbolic threshold of a successful season, ensuring their first winning record in years, and now stand positioned to chase rewards far more meaningful. What remains most striking, however, is the tonal shift around the franchise. A fan base conditioned to expect heartbreak is now allowing itself to enjoy the moment. National commentators increasingly include the Bears in conversations once reserved for perennial contenders. And inside the locker room, the team's confidence appears both grounded and earned, built not on empty bravado, but on repeated evidence that Chicago can win games through multiple styles: smash-mouth ground control, late-game execution, defensive grit, or calibrated offensive rhythm. If December football is a test of identity, then the Bears now enter the month with one that feels both authentic and sustainable. A blueprint forged by resilience, adaptability, and the kind of steady belief that had vanished from the organization in prior years. As the regular season winds toward a crescendo featuring rivalry games, playoff implications, and national spotlights, Chicago stands not as a novelty surprise, but as a legitimate NFC force, a team that has authored one of the league's most captivating turnarounds and now holds the stage in a conference suddenly lacking a clear favorite. That the Bears find themselves at the center of the NFC's narrative as December begins is a testament to coaching, culture, and the recalibration of expectations that accompanies winning. And while much remains to be settled on the field, Chicago's surprising surge has reintroduced a long-dormant possibility into the city's football imagination. The possibility that a season once expected to be transitional may instead be transformational, and that this team, after years of wandering, may finally have charted a course capable not only of securing the NFC North or even the conference's top seed, but of competing for something far larger as winter's stakes rise and the league's contenders step forward to define themselves.